Okay, so we are live. Hi everyone who's watching. I'm Paul from Refocus Coaching. I help dads in business to increase their energy levels, improve their health, and lose excess body fat through nutrition and mindset coaching. And I do that after turning my own life around and then studying how to help others do the same thing. If you are watching, please give us a thumbs up so that we know you're there. And if you've got any questions or you want to say hi in the comments, then please drop them in and we'll get to those when we can. And today I'm joined by Steve Currie. So please introduce yourself.
Hi, Paul. Yeah, so I'm Steve. I'm a branding photographer. I help founders and business owners with their photography. I help them feel confident in front of the camera and help them create content that just gets them noticed and it helps them get results, really. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Thanks for joining me today as well to have a little chat. So the point of these conversations is to kind of highlight how challenging it is to sort of manage your energy levels and your health as a business owner and operator, whilst you've also got family commitments and things going on. So I guess we sort of start off by asking if there's any particular areas in health that you may have struggled with, or where you've spent some time working on them, and any sort of big lessons that you've learned along the way.
Yeah. How long we got, Paul? My listeners. I've struggled in several areas over the years. Bad sleep, bad nutrition, bad mindset, not exercising, doing the wrong exercises, doing too much exercising. Yeah, it's been a learning curve, but I think all of those have resulted in me not being able to perform at my best, either as a dad or at work. I think nutrition was probably my biggest area. I've gone up and down with nutrition. I've had areas of my time where I've really focused and I've really knuckled down and I've ate well and cut out the crap and done really well. And then other times it just goes out the window and I stress eat. And I don't plan and just, it goes out the window. But that's something that's happened cyclical over the years, just goes round and round. And
yeah, that's the thing. When you make that conscious effort and you're sort of in the zone, it feels okay, and then you kind of start taking it for granted a little bit, and that's when I tend to find people slip.
Yeah, that slipping, that was massive. So a few years ago, I can't remember, maybe 2018, something like that, I was physically and mentally, I think, at my best. I felt great, felt full of energy. I'd lost a load of timber. I was doing well. And yeah, I just felt really good. And I think everyone kept saying to me how well I looked and all the rest of it. And I think maybe that kind of made me take my foot off the pedal, because I was kind of thinking, okay, I've reached where I want to reach, where I want to get to. So yeah, maybe I can eat a little bit more of that. Maybe I can go to the gym less. Maybe I can work a little bit less hard on that. And before you know it, you're a few stone heavier and it's caught back up with you.
No, it's a story and a scenario I hear all the time, because you're exactly right. You kind of, especially if you're getting compliments, you do think to yourself, consciously or subconsciously, well, I'm okay then, so I can, like you said, I can have an extra drink, I can have an extra bit of grub, I can have a few more takeaways than normal, or you just forget the sort of basic planning element, and then you're grabbing things on the go, and it's, our food environment's not very helpful.
No.
We're set up for hyper palatable, super calorific, easy to eat, cheap foods, and so that's what we get. So it is a really tricky area, and there's, I think you touched on it a bit earlier when you said about planning, because I think that's a big part of kind of staying on top of it, is making a bit of a plan, even if it's just in your head, at the start of the week, as to like, what's my week look like, how am I going to survive, how am I going to get good nutrition, and where is it going to be crap, and trying to find that balance.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I've done this week. This is the first time I've done it in ages, but I've actually made a meal plan and it's stuck on my fridge.
Okay.
What I'm having every night. Everything's already in the house, so I don't need to go out to the shop. I've made a bet with someone that I'll spend the whole week and not go to the shop, because I go to the shop all the time. And then you buy the you know what it's like. You go there for something and you come up with 10 things, and you know, dairy milk chocolate or ice cream or whatever stuff that you didn't go in there for, but it's on offer, isn't it? You know, you get the old club card points, and before you know it, it's in the trolley. And if it's in the house, you need to. Who was it? Someone said to me the other week, it was so simple. I just don't buy it. And I was thinking, how, I know that sounds so stupid, but if it's not there, you can't have it. So it's just so simple, but it's so effective as well.
Yeah, no, it's true. And a lot of people sort of try to hide it in the house, but you can't really hide it from yourself because you know it's there.
I've tried that.
So, yeah, you still go and get it, even though you make it harder for yourself. I mean, I've done it myself. I've put the big box of chocolates, put it in the garage, but I can still go and get it. I know it's there.
You sit there thinking, I could go out. Yeah, I'm going to go and get it.
I'm going to go and get it. Just slip my Crocs on, whip out there. Yeah. So did you, interesting that you've planned ahead this week. Is that because you were coming on and talking to me, or there was another kind of...
Actually, a couple of weeks ago, I just felt really drained, and I realized that my sugar intake had gone through the roof. You know, I was eating chocolate every day, stress eating, reaching, like you said, reaching for the crappy foods. If I was working in London, when I'd get to the train station to come home and the train's not in yet, I'd be like, right, WH Smith, get a couple of chocolate bars for the train. And if you're doing that every day, and in my head I was thinking, imagine if I laid out everything that I'd eaten this week that was crap on a table. I'd be horrified. I'd be thinking, what are you doing to yourself? You've got a choice here and you're choosing to eat that, and that has to stop. And my sleep was really bad. I'm quite obsessed with the stats on my watch and stuff, and my sleep was bad. My HRV was like the bottom, lowest it can go. And I just thought, and it was quite hot last week as well, wasn't it, or the other week? So that was quite negatively impacting my sleep as well. And I just thought, you need to sort yourself out a little bit here. So get planning, get back on track, take a little bit of responsibility. And so it just kind of coincided really, but I'm feeling a lot clearer on what I need to do this week with food. So it's much better.
Yeah, that's really good. And, you have to be proactive and get clear on it. I like the kind of the thought process of sort of lining up all of the foods that you've eaten. Because one of the things I find when I work with people is, even if I just ask them to write down the foods that they eat, they alter their intake of food automatically because of the act of just writing it down and looking at it yourself and going, oh, really?
Yeah,
that's what I'm eating. Oops. And it sort of makes people just change their habits straight away just by writing it down. So it's quite a good thought process to go through.
You pretend that you've had less than what you have actually eaten. If you order a takeaway, you sort of convince yourself that you've got to eat, you've got to finish it because you've paid for it, right? Even if you're stuffed.
Yeah.
And then you sit there afterwards thinking, "Why did I do that?" It's that regret that sticks in.
And each item in isolation, in and of itself, isn't necessarily a bad thing. And so again, you'll tell yourself that too. You'll have that justification in your head. Well, this is okay because I'm not going to do this tomorrow. But then tomorrow comes, and then you might go and do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's that continual accumulation. And there's some really interesting research that's come out recently about the dopamine reward system in your head. So people that tend to snack on higher sugar, high GI foods, easier to digest foods, your typical kind of go and grab snacks in the shop, they get that dopamine hit in the brain. And so it's sort of, your brain rewards you with feeling good. So you kind of get into a loop and get stuck and go back for more because that's what your brain wants, It doesn't care about your long-term plans or your long-term health. It's just after that instant reward. So you can within a few weeks, you can get yourself in a bit of a habit loop quite easily.
Yeah. No, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I interrupted you. So I was going to ask about sleep as well then, because obviously that, your nutrition can have an impact on that. So it'd be interesting to hear what you've kind of thought about that, because I love these sort of apps that you can get on the watches and the rings now that really sort of dig into the quality of sleep and tell you what you're doing. What do you use? Have you got Whoop?
I've just got a Garmin. So I just use the Garmin Connect or whatever it is. and look on that. I don't want to get, I can feel myself getting too bogged down by the tech. If I got one of the Aura rings and all the rest of it, I'd be obsessed with it, and I'd be analysing everything and boring the arse off of everybody at the same time. But yeah, I think that I noticed a massive difference if I eat after 8 p.m. I don't sleep as well. And that's just me. It's just something that I've realised over the years. If I eat late, it's not, I know for some people it's not late, but if I eat later in the evening, my sleep's terrible. I just don't recharge, and I wake up feeling sometimes as if I've been drinking. You've got a real bad headache and sluggish. So I try and make it a rule that I don't eat anything after 8 p.m. Sleep-wise, in terms of the amount of sleep I get, between 7 and 8 hours every night. Nothing really over 8 hours, but that's fairly consistent. I'm pretty okay with that. I don't struggle so much with that, but it's definitely that not eating after a certain time works really well for me.
Yeah, and it's good that you've figured that out and recognized it. Your body is constantly giving you cues and data, isn't it? It's just that we tend to ignore it and just power through. So yeah, I know it's good that you've got that, and I think you're right. Some of these devices are, whilst they're enlightening, you can get a bit obsessive potentially. Especially imagine all week you're getting like an 89% or something on your recovery, and then you get an 85 and you're trying to rack your brains to figure out what the hell's done differently.
If I lost those few percent, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, how did that happen?
Yeah I think they're great for a guide, but even then, like I did a walk last year or the year before. It was a 2-day event, and when I woke up in the morning for the second day, my body battery was on 5% at the start of the day. But I still went out and did the walk. So even though it's telling you that you're absolutely bottomed out, you can still go and do what you need to do. It's just going to be a little bit harder. You can't live by what the data says. It's just a guide.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's exactly that as well, isn't it? It's data, which is useful. If you think of it from a business sense, the more data you've got to kind of analyze, maybe the more accurate you can do things. But definitely don't want to get it into an obsessive relationship, really, do you?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
not at all.
Cool. So it sounds like you've done quite a bit of proactive thinking and working on those things, which is really good. I tend to work, and you've kind of said my 4 pillars that I work on. So I work on nutrition with clients. I work on movement, which is exercise and just walking, recovery, so sleep and rest, and then mindset. And I think the 4 are really linked. You can have a knock-on effect to each one if one of the others isn't quite right. So, for example, if you're underslept, that actually affects your hormones that trigger satiety and hunger. So if you're underslept, your satiety hormone is reduced and your hunger hormone is increased, which kind of makes sense. Yeah, if you're underslept, it means your body's probably a bit low on energy. So it sort of says, go and get some energy. So that can be really critical. And you can get into a bit of a loop then as well. So if you're then surviving on caffeine drinks and sugary foods, then you're not sleeping well, you get stuck in a loop. Kind of, you need them and then you sleep poorly and then you need them again, and you're just sort of in this never-ending loop.
That cycle of just replenishing every time.
Exactly. And
those of your 4 pillars, do you think that any are more important than the others? I mean, I think that, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what exercise you do. If your nutrition's not right, you're not going to necessarily get the benefits right. You could do CrossFit 7 days a week and deadlift 250 kilos or whatever. You could be a bit of a beast, but if your food's not right, then it doesn't really do anything, does it?
Yeah, no, I agree. I often think about this because I think they're all very important, and you could argue the case for each one being the most important. But I think if I was really pressed to pick one, I'd say it's nutrition, because if you look at yourself as a machine, as an animal, what you feed your body is ultimately going to dictate your output on anything you do. It's sort of going to impact on your mindset and the way you think and your attitude. It potentially affects your recovery, your rest, whether you fidget around or whether you can actually stay still and sleep, and it's going to affect energy you've got for movement. So yeah, I think probably nutrition would be the one. And most people that I work with in terms of improving health, improving energy, or fat loss, usually the nutrition is the biggest thing that we would end up working on.
Definitely with me, that is.
Yeah,
I need that
yeah,
right.
yeah,
I
and
think
it's a tricky area.
it is tricky. I think one of the other ones that you mentioned with movement, I think back to years ago when I was going to the gym every day. I would have that solid hour every day, maybe an hour in the morning, maybe an hour in the afternoon, but that would be it. The rest of the time I'd be sat on my backside at work. So there'd be no other movements. Yeah, you might have a really good session and you might burn 1,000 calories or more, whatever it is. But that's all of your movement for the rest of the day. You wouldn't be doing anything else. I'd just be sat there working, and then I'd go home and I'd sit in front of the telly, and then it was, I can't remember who it was. Someone was telling me about how important it is to get that. Is it called, you'll know this because you're the expert, is it called NEAT or something?
Yes, yeah.
Non-exercise
So
something.
non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Yeah, you got 10 marks. Yeah, that was it. And when I understood that, it really makes you think, okay, maybe I will go for that walk. Or maybe I will park a little bit further from the shop or whatever it is, just to make sure you're getting that extra movement in. Going and hammering a gym session on its own is not, it's not going to work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's one of the biggest lessons that, I impart usually, especially for someone who's considering working with a coach, because a lot of people, especially when it comes to fat loss, think, well, gym, I need to go and do a gym session, or I need to start running or doing something like that. And it can stop people from even attempting in the first place. But actually, it can be counterintuitive, especially if an individual is carrying a lot of extra weight and they're obese. Suddenly starting on an exercise regime isn't necessarily going to be very helpful anyway, because it's quite high impact. There's a high risk of injuring yourself, and and that sudden outburst of energy actually makes you hungry. So it can lead to potentially taking in more food. So it's arguably it's more important to just move a bit more, and that's what NEAT is. That's all of your movements that is not specifically exercise. So even me waving my arms around, everything we do, from getting out of bed in the morning and brushing our teeth to walking to the car to going up the stairs to putting your clothes on, all these things, that's what all that is. And walking is
raving. That might help.
yeah. Just do a bit of home raving.
Yeah, just burning a few extra calories.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to sort of, and this is part of that mindset thing for me, is looking ahead and planning your week is not just looking at maybe your nutrition, but it's, can I actually fit those walks in? Can I? And I think it's beneficial for work as well, to, if you're sat at your desk all day staring at a screen, and you tend to, if you're stressed, I don't know about you, but I tend to hunch over the keyboard and get sort of all bent over the desk. I think it's important to break the work up and go out, and even if you just go around the block, around your neighborhood, or up and down the corridor in your office or wherever, and that's all going to help contribute to that energy output as well. So and it's good for this thing too.
Yeah, just to take yourself away. I didn't do that yesterday, and I felt bad I was just sat at my desk catching up with stuff yesterday the whole day. And I definitely noticed that last night. I just thought should have gone out for a bit.
Yeah, I often find I unravel problems better if I'm not staring at the problem as well. So if I've got a complicated piece of work or an issue I'm dealing with, rather than sitting staring at the screen, tearing my hair out, which I don't have much of, it's better if I go for a walk. Yeah, if I go for a walk, quite often, your brain sort of figures it out for you, and you come back with the answer.
So again, like creating content, isn't it? You go out for a walk, and all of a sudden you've got all these ideas of things that are going to work. But if you just sit there at your computer trying to think, forcing it, it doesn't come.
It doesn't happen.
Relaxing.
Yeah. No, it's a big one. Yeah. No. So it's a great question. I think probably pick nutrition out of all of the four if I had to press for one, but I think they're all linked, and you can bring them all up together, and you can take them all down together as well.
Interesting.
Cool. Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And I, without getting crazy scientific, ideally you just want to get back to basics. and do like your kind of grandparents would have told you, eat your greens, and eat whole foods, get outside and play, and just sort of do the basics, and you're generally going to be all right. We've built far too comfortable an environment for ourselves, haven't we? We sit most of the day staring at a screen, not getting out, and then we fill ourselves with food to keep us going, which may not necessarily be the best stuff.
I remember working in companies where they would bring food in, almost like so you didn't have to get up from your desk and go out for an hour.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll bring you lunch. You just stay there and keep grafting and don't move.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, good, got lunch brought in. But actually, yeah.
Yeah. They were literally like keeping you a prisoner, a bit like the Matrix. You're like a battery cell, just keeping the company running. Yeah. So if you were kind of going to look back, and talk to your younger self and sort of starting out again, sort of business and family, is there any sort of advice you would give regarding your health?
So any advice would probably be to keep up the fitness. When I was at school, I was very fit. I was in different sports teams. That led over into college. College was exactly the same. And then I kind of went to university for a bit. I say that I was only there 3 months, so I'm not a university graduate. But then it all fell out. I stopped on the fitness. I got into partying. I got into drinking. I got into just going out, having a good time, and completely left all that alone. And then before you know it, you're in your early 20s, you're having children, and you've got this lifestyle that's just slobbish, basically, from party to party, no exercise, not looking after yourself. And for me, that spilt over until probably my second child was born. So it's probably 6 or 7 years of having kids before I realized I need to sort myself out here. I need to get back into my fitness. So I think if I could talk to my younger self, I'd say never take your foot off of it. You don't have to hammer it all the time, but just make sure it's part of your life in some way. That would be keen. I think another one would be lead by example for your kids, because you can. I mean, we all know this. You can shout at your kids. You can tell them don't do this, whatever. They're not going to listen to you, but they do follow what you do. They do lead by example. And if they see a guy who's always getting hammered, always sleeping in, can't do anything, has a short fuse, he's not very nice to other people. If that's how you are, then you're going to breed monsters, because they're going to think that that's normal behavior. So you have to jump on that, take responsibility for it. What else? Moderation. You don't have to cut everything out. I think over the years, if I get into something, and I don't know whether this is some other kind of condition I have, but I'm all in. Everything goes into this one thing that I'm absolutely focused on, and I'll hammer it to death, and then I'll lose interest in it, and then I'll go on to something else. So I think if you just have everything in moderation, don't beat yourself up too much, I think that would probably be advice.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. So if any young Steves are watching, you've helped them out there.
Hope so. Yeah, I hope so. You never know.
And it's great advice. And I think, to your point, especially about the physical thing, I did exactly the same. So I played rugby. I used to go to the gym and train a lot with the rugby guys when I was in my 20s. And when I stopped doing that, completely stopped all of it, and was just career. And when you do that, when you finally realize what you've done and you try to get back into doing some physical activity, it's really bloody hard. So like you said, to your point, you don't have to go crazy and do lots and lots and lots of it, but when you're in a certain state of fitness, it's actually relatively easy to maintain it once you're there, just by doing a little bit every now and again. And I think that's one of the big points, really, is to try and keep that going. And I think
many years ago, the company I was working in had like a little football competition, and all the divisions played each other, and we went for a little practice training game. And I hadn't done any exercise for a long time or whatever, but you know what it's like being we all still think we've got it, don't we? We all still think that we're like 15 years old and we've got all the moves and all the energy and stuff. And I went to this training game. I went on one run, and that was me out the game. I was absolutely smashed. And I remember thinking, you need to be fitter, Steve. This is not good. You know, I didn't do anything about it. I just thought, I'm not playing. I'm going to be the manager instead, and not taking action. And I just think you're going back to advice. You need to just keep that. You need to be able to run about. You need to be able to move. You need to be able to, you know, not pull your back out just picking a box up and just, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. I think as well for men is certainly, and it's important for women as well. I think we should try and stay strong, and you know, I think ideally you lift some heavy stuff every now and again, and then you know it's metabolically healthy because it's encouraging your muscles to actually use that energy. It strengthens your bones and your joints. It's just better for your body as well. And again, it's another thing that I completely dropped, you know, all of it. So I went from, you know, I wasn't super fit. I wasn't a professional athlete or anything, but I went from physically fit and healthy to just doing nothing pretty much for years. And like you said earlier, suddenly, after a few years, I'm looking in the mirror thinking, oh shit, what's happened there?
Yeah. What's going on? Yeah. I remember when I started going to the gym, I was just like, I hadn't done any fitness for years. And I joined the gym and I just did the old elliptical cross trainer type thing. And I would go on that every day because it felt safe. I knew what I was doing. I felt like I was being active, and I got a little bit better at it, a little bit stronger at it. Then I got into the rowing stuff. Loved doing that. And then I kind of built up a little bit more confidence to take one of these classes. It was like a HIIT training class.
Yeah.
But next door to that was like the CrossFit class where they were like lifting weights, throwing them down, banging chalk all over the place. And I remember opening the door to have a little look in there and thinking, no way, there's no way I'm doing that. That looks absolutely crazy. But the coach convinced me to have a go. And that's where the weightlifting stuff came in. And as soon as I started doing the weightlifting and being coached on how to do it properly and learning how to do it, my fitness just changed completely. And it wasn't so much about banging out the hours on the elliptical or the cardio stuff. Yeah, that's great. But it definitely, I noticed a huge difference doing the weight training, massive. And I think that was classes, they're a combination of the two. At the time, it worked well for me. Lots of injuries because you push yourself too much. But yeah, definitely the weight training helped.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, arguably it's one of the most important things you can do for your health and fitness, really, as opposed to doing the cardio based things that traditionally that you would do. I think it's really important, and it just, I don't know. I find I work with I do a fitness class on the weekend, and it's in this sort of strength based training, and it just lifts everybody. You just feel better. You walk with better posture. You walk taller. You just feel you've got more of a bounce about you because your body's a bit better tuned. So I think there's a lot to be said for doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you just feel so much better afterwards, don't you? You feel just more energized and more like you've done something.
Yeah, which is good. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we've waffled on quite nicely. We're nearly up at half an hour. I was going to ask you about whether have you got any kind of daily non-negotiables in regards to your health that you sort of always deliver on?
Do you know what? I'd love to sit here and say, Paul, I've got 5 non-negotiables that I do every day. You know, I do this, I do that. But the truth is, no, I don't. I think if I looked at what I do every single day without fail, is I take my medication because I had my thyroid removed years ago. So I have to take tablets for that. So I take that every day. And I talk to my kids every day. I say talk. They don't talk on the phone, do they, these days? It's all messaging. But I make sure I check in with them, and, you know, and see what's going on and make sure they're okay. So they're the two. So no, when it comes to things like journaling or ice baths or meditation or stuff like that, no, I don't. I've dipped in and out of that. I did find that the like gratitude journaling thing, it did work for me. I felt it beneficial, but it's not something that I keep up every single day. Even though I've got an app that reminds me every night to put an entry in, I just ignore it now. Same with meditation. I haven't quite got into that, but yeah, I don't beat myself up over it too much. You know, I can't say that I definitely exercise every day, because some days I'm just too busy. But I know that I never skip exercise because I don't fancy it, because I enjoy it. If I can't do a session, it's because I just don't have the time. And I'll make up. I never wake up and think, oh God, I'm not going to the gym today, or I'm not going for a run, because it's something that I actually enjoy doing. So I can't promise that there's loads of non-negotiables that I smash out every day.
Yeah, no, and you don't need to have some, do you? It's interesting. I always like to ask people, and I think, you know, one of those, like you said, making contact with your kids and speaking to them, that's massive for your health, because otherwise you're going to be wondering, worrying all day anyway, aren't you? So, you know, what a great way to start the day is to, you know, have some interaction with those guys, even if it is a bit of a grunt or a text.
Well, yeah, it sometimes takes all day to get a reply, but because they're so busy. But yeah, it is just having that daily contact. You know, my kid, I'm quite fortunate. My kids are older. You know, one's at college and one is working, so they're not young kids anymore. It's, you know, it's quite good.
Yeah. No, that's good. Cool. So we've gone over the 30 minutes. We've got a bit of time to spare, obviously. And you know, is there anything that you wanted to kind of bring up or ask specifically before we wrap up?
The main thing I was interested in, I think you've touched on it already with the whole nutrition, but it was what you think is most important when it comes to maintaining your health, I suppose, physically and mentally. If there's one thing for you that stands out that everybody should take more seriously, but you might have already touched on that when you were talking about nutrition. I don't know if there's anything else you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think nutrition is an area that can have some of the biggest and most positive impact on your health, for sure. But what it takes is intention to do that. So I think maybe the most important thing to work on is to have some intention. And I don't mean in the sense that you have to have a goal of some kind, because I think just maintaining health is a valid goal and a valid exercise in itself. But I think, you know, we talked right at the start, didn't we, about getting complacent, taking things for granted, and then it slips and you just stop doing it. And I think ideally you want to have intention every week and some kind of checking in with yourself. How was the last week in terms of, you know, did I get my movement in? Is my sleep on point? Am I hydrating well? Was my nutrition a pile of crap, or was it all right? And then planning ahead, right, what's this week look like? Okay, I've got a thing on my way on Tuesday. I've got a meeting in the book on Thursday. I've got a night out on Friday. How am I going to navigate those? What can I do in advance that's going to help me prepare for those? What can I do in the rest of the week to kind of balance all of that? Yeah. And so I think for me, it's being intentional about it and actually thinking about things, reflecting on what's gone past, and then planning ahead to kind of make a difference. Because without that, you're just winging it, and then you're likely to, because of the food environment, like we spoke about earlier, you're likely to not be making brilliant choices.
Just drop off, yeah. And another follow-up question that I'd have to that is, where would somebody start? So somebody's sitting there at home and they're going, do you know what? I need to get my food in order. I need to get my nutrition on track. Where's the best place for somebody to start to do that? I mean, would it be looking at what they're eating currently, or are there go-to foods that they need to do, or how would somebody go about that, do you think?
Yeah, so it's a mega question. Love it. I think, like I said earlier, kind of get back to basics. So go old school, try and eat as many whole food sources as you can. So good quality whole food sources, you know, fruits and veggies, nuts and lean proteins, and try to reduce what I would call ultra processed foods. So you can't avoid processed foods altogether, because processed foods encompass a lot of the things that we eat, and not all processed food is inherently bad. But I'd say the really ultra processed stuff, so things that are in a crinkly packet that have got a long list of ingredients on the back, half of which you can't pronounce the names of, you know, try and cut down on that stuff and go and try and lean more towards the whole food. And I think these days, a lot of people's problem is time. And so, we even for myself and my family, we've used HelloFresh and Gusto and things like that to get fresh whole foods in with an ingredient card and some ingredients, and then you just whack it together in a couple of pans. And that's good enough, to kind of help. So I think, and not to get too, I think a lot of people worry about weight, obviously, and body weight and trying to lose weight and do it in a quite an extreme way when they're attempting it by themselves. And for me, I want to encourage people to feed themselves well and eat well. And a lot of the people I work with actually remark to me after a few weeks, they've never eaten so much food in their life, and yet they're losing weight. And it's because we kind of try and fill them up with whole foods because they're voluminous, they've got less calories involved because they're not, processed together with lots of other ingredients. So I think it's I'd say, as a start point, try and reintroduce whole foods as much as you possibly can. And if you need a bit of help, get a box in that's got things ready to go, and you can just sort of make it up from there. And at this point, I should put a URL up for my HelloFresh referral, shouldn't I?
Do you it's just something that just popped into my head because I hear people talking about it all the time. But what about frequency of eating? Because some people go, "Oh, you should eat 55 times a day," or other people say, fast and don't have breakfast and do this. Is there a best way, or is it a case of figuring out what works for you?
Yeah, so there is the best way, and it's whatever way you can make it work for you. Yeah, you're exactly right. Obviously I wouldn't encourage a massive meal before bed because that's going to disrupt your sleep. But yeah, whatever works for you is the best way. If we're talking about an elite athlete and we want timing of energy, then let's get scientific. But for general population, just eating well, make it fit to you and do it in a way that gives you enough time and planning to be able to make a decent meal or introduce those whole foods that we were talking about. So if you want to try intermittent fasting and it works for you because of your routine, great, that's the way to go. If it doesn't and you're a breakfast monster, then go heavy on the breakfast, and I think it's about making it work and fit for you rather than trying to fit to a system or a diet.
Cool. Nice. It's helpful stuff,
mate. No, good questions, thank you. All right, well, look, it's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you. I don't think we've had anyone dropping any comments or questions in, so if anyone's got any after the fact, then put them in on the LinkedIn post and we'll see them and come back to you. If anyone wants to make contact with Steve for photography needs or just for a hug, then get in touch.
Or just to abuse me, normally what happens. Find me on LinkedIn. That's why.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool. So that was great. Thanks very much, Steve. Really enjoyed that.
Thanks, Paul. Nice catching up, mate. Look after yourself.
Yeah. Cool. And you. Cheers.
Take
Bye.
care.